Welcome to the World Poetry Cafe. You're listening to Co-op Radio 100.5 FM, the World Poetry Cafe, broadcasting from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So I'd like to welcome the wonderful Jazz Gill, who comes in a lot of times when we're working with musicians, and I'd like to welcome her to the studio, and also thanks to Jerry.
Thank you, Ariadne. A pleasure to be here as usual. Reading Eric's bio, this kind of resonated with me because I think a lot of us different rebirths throughout our lives. You know, when things change, when things fall apart, when we rebuild. You know, he's had his trials and tribulations like us all, and he's penned them, which is quite brave.
And I thought it was so nice, the message he has for youth, too.
Yes.
It's just so important in this day and age for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. So Eric grew up as an adopted child in and around Pennsylvania and New Jersey. At the height of his musical career, Eric was in contract discussions with record producers of such famous musicians as David Bowie, Trent Reznor, and U2. For the Record is his autobiography from those early beginnings through his darkest hours 4 decades later. So this is an autobiography that you've put together, Eric, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes.
You're listening to Co-op Radio 100.5 FM, broadcasting from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And we're coming back now with Eric. And Eric, do you have a message for the world?
Well, my message is that, you know, anyone who's been a child looking to get out of any kind of situation, make sure that you respect your elders, but don't take authority for granted that it's exactly what it should be. Question it all along the way and do everything you can to make sure that you're okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a beautiful message. Thank you so much. And in reading your book, I was amazed at what you had gone through. And the question I had was the darkest, when you were going through the darkest periods, what sort of sustained you? What sort of kept you going?
Well, it's a great question. I did what I could to kind of just keep going in the darkest moments. It was all about making sure that I knew that the children in my life were still there and counted on me. I'm a godfather 4 times over, and I didn't want to just disappear and not be around them anymore. They were all counting on me, and in remembering what I had gone through, I wanted to make sure I could be there for them so that if they went through that, they could count on me.
Yes, that's wonderful. So that was sort of at the back of your mind when things were rough.
Absolutely. I mean, it most definitely was never far from my mind. It was just a transition that I went through, and I know a lot of other people that I know have gone through it, and it's been a difficult time in life, and not just middle-aged or doing any kind of, scenario where it's, you've passed your prime or anything like that. It's more about what can you still have to offer. And
Yes.
I remember just thinking, these people count on me. They've asked me to be godfather, and I can't just bow out at a moment's notice and be selfish about it. I went through tough times as a kid, and very tough times, and that was first and foremost on my mind, to not let them go through it without me. At least helping them through that.
And I think that speaks a lot when you can actually, be accountable to those around you. And I think, one thing that I really appreciated about the information that I got about you, Eric, was that you're hoping, with writing this autobiography, one of your hopes was that others wouldn't kind of go through the same hardships and make the same mistakes that you've made, and so others can learn from your hardships and your trials. And I think that's something very honorable when we travel a journey and we understand the pain of that journey. Not be in that dark place that we once were, and by writing about it, you've shed light on that darkness.
Well, you're exactly right, and going through whatever anyone goes through, everyone has can say they've had a tough life and do their own thing. But more importantly, it's exactly what you said. You want to make sure that whatever you've gone through, you can't turn your back on those that you love, and you want to be there for them.
I mean, and let it not be in vain, right?
Exactly. I mean,
what was the toughest lesson that you learned?
Well, there were difficulties in my upbringing, preacher's kid and adopted, and feeling that sense of alienation that I guess everyone does, but I seem to have really stuck onto it further. But I grew up in a rural area, and there was a lot of violence from teachers back in the day, long before it became the tiniest thing today gets in the newspaper, and it's a major thing.
Yes.
Unbelievable the amount of things that I've witnessed and saw and endured myself. I was luckier than certainly some of the people who've been abused, sexually or otherwise. But certainly violently, I had more than my fair share, and many others of my classmates did too. I started hearing things from one of my goddaughters, just struggling through social outcasts and bullying, unbelievable. It's been out of control in this country for a long time. I think that internationally, many school systems have us beat because they realize, okay, here's the situation. We all treat each other as a level playing field. There's less class structure. There's more appreciation, person to person. It gets political later on in life, but I think in school systems, they have us beat. But back then, it was difficult, and I still hear this going on. I don't see much going positive in the way of the school systems going further.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important to reach the younger generation, because it's that window of opportunity before life hardens them. And
correct, exactly. Very well put.
Yeah. So especially, the ages, when they're going to school, there's so many different influences from outside.
I think what you're doing with your book is just really so important, and that's why I was delighted when it was sent to me.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I have had a few people come up to me who've been, struggling through moments in their life and have said to me, thank you. I mean, I'm not a well-respected author by any means yet, but it's the kind of thing where if you touch that one person or two people where it really relates to them and their circumstances, situation, they really understand, like, okay, it's not complete darkness. There is that one thing to grab onto. There is that one thing that really matters, and you realize to go back to that.
And I think
it helps.
when you're able to and willing to, put your life story and your experiences on paper and pen, and that takes a lot of courage, Eric. Regardless of the amount of fame you have, or whether you're famous or not famous, it takes a lot of courage. What was your greatest, challenge or struggle in actually writing this book?
I have to say that it's been being honest. My best friend Steve, who I talk about in the book, when he's pressed about me, saying to describe me, he always says it's that he's blatantly honest. Eric's always honest, and
that can get you in trouble sometimes.
Totally, and that's exactly where I'm going with this. The hardest thing was, I've lost friendships over this book. I've lost lifelong, relationships where this has been it's almost like you're the investigative reporter who's got to get to the truth. Well, I interviewed a lot of people. This book took me 4 years to write, 250, 300 pages, and it's checked and checked and checked. And a lot of people don't like their old truths being aired out. And I respect that to some point. But there's another point where it's this is what you did. You were there, and I'm sorry, but honestly, you were there, I was there, this is what happened, and it shaped me. You might not want to talk about it, but that's the way it is. And of course, I had legal counsel and all that, but the truth is, this is what happened. And that's been the biggest hurdle.
And
lifelong friendships that I've had
Yeah.
have struggled over this. On the other hand, some people who have read this have been like, that's an amazing story.
Mhm.
I remember you when you were there. I remember those people when they were there, and it all makes sense now. So
yeah. So there's
you hear
more
you
light
hear
shed
both-
on a lot of stuff.
Both sides, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm hoping for you, Eric. As this, your book comes out and the story, becomes, literally your life becomes an open book. I'm hoping for you that these relationships that have kind of, been a little bit estranged due to this, I'm hoping that over time, that they will, find their way back to you. And if that's, and understand that, you're coming from a place of love and wanting to help others, and you're not coming from a place of wanting to hurt anybody. So for people,
that's just it. It's not calling people out on whatever they did.
No, it's speaking your truth.
On the one hand, I'm self-righteous to the point that, yes, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, it's that it's okay
Mm-hmm.
that you have kids now, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't want them reading that you did this and whatever. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the point.
Mm-hmm.
And what I got most upset about
Mm-hmm.
on some examples is
Mm-hmm.
that people were more interested in what did I write about them.
Yes,
I can't
yes.
tell you how many people came to me.
Yeah.
Well, what did you write about me?
It's fear,
Oh,
and
you
it's
weren't in it,
personal
or
for them, right?
You weren't in the book, or
Yeah.
you didn't make the cut, or I wrote
Or why
only
wasn't
one
I in the
sentence
book?
about you. And these people don't realize that this book wasn't about them; it was
Yes.
about me.
Yes.
Very few people understood
Yes.
that it was to get this out of me, so that
Yes.
I could explain,
Yeah.
what has been going on for me and what's been going on about me.
So this is
Why did I put it out there? Because I wanted to correct things, and it was an outgrowth of the band that I was in and the music that I had done for a long, long time, and famous people that you talked
Yeah.
about in the intro.
Yeah.
And it's just a life.
So
and I just put it out there for.
Has it been healing for you, Eric?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I need to interject a minute. I highly recommend this book. It's called For the Record by Eric Folk. And if he could please tell the radio listeners where they can buy it, that would be great. Also, if you have any links that you want me to put on tomorrow when I put you on our featured spot, please send them to me. I'm not sure if you did already, but if you hadn't, please send them to me.
For the Record by Eric Vogt is in paperback, audiobook, ebook, and accompanying music soundtrack for sale and download on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Eric Vogt, F-O-C-H-T, For the Record. You can't miss it. It'll be up and posted. Everything's there now. Audiobooks and music to follow within the month.
Oh, that's great, Eric. And I just wanted to, I think Jess has another question. We have
I wanted to read a couple of reviews of the book. This one is from S.W. Hubbard, author of Another Man's Treasure. His review states, "This rock musician's tale of despair and triumph will inspire readers everywhere." And the next review is by Patrick James, author of Passages. And his comment on the book is, "An amazing journey, a gritty, raw, and compelling life story."
Oh, the other thing I was going to ask you is, with your music, are you still playing music, or that's sort of a past thing, or?
I haven't formally recorded anything in a few years, but I did 2 solo albums after the band was over. Otherwise, no. Nothing formally.
Nothing.
It's still right under the surface though all the time. So
Right.
a day doesn't go by that I don't write a lyric or
Yeah. When you're a writer, you're a writer, right? For life.
Exactly.
Right,
For sure.
Ariadne? Yeah.
That's right. Well, it's certainly been great talking to you, and thank you for phoning in, and I hope we can be in touch in the future. It sounds like with this book you're making a difference in people's lives, and it sounds like, we wish you all the best with the book.
Thank you so much, and I'm outlining 2 new books currently, so there'll be more. But I really appreciate the opportunity here, and it was great talking with you all.
Great talking to you, Eric, and hopefully we'll all stay in touch, and you can come to Vancouver and grace us with your presence and have your book launch.
Well, thank you so much.
And we can chat some more.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you,
Eric.
Eric.
Have a good night.